Drug policy in the U.S. makes no sense whatsoever, and I'm not even talking about the war on drugs this time. I'm talking about what the FDA allows versus what gets denied people for the craziest reasons. Meloxicam is a prescription-strength NSAID. My doctor tried me on it for a bit, but took me off because he was worried about the long-term side effects. NSAIDs, by the way, are non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, and they include aspirin, ibuprofen, and naproxen, all available over the counter, and all with these same side effects, just not as bad. But meloxicam specifically, being as strong as it is a particular worry. In fact, the mother of Crystal Lindell, the author of the article linked in the show notes, had a particularly bad time with it. The FDA just approved Zyferm, which is an intravenous version of meloxicam indicated for moderate to severe pain. It's designed to be given once a day. Ron Scarborough, CEO of Azurity Pharmaceuticals, said, quote, "Zyferm demonstrates our commitment to improving patient care by providing an alternate dosage form for pain management. Zyferm addresses an important clinical need, especially for patients requiring a non-opioid component to multimodal analgesia strategies." What they only tell you in the fine print is, quote, "NSAIDs, including meloxicam, can cause serious gastrointestinal adverse events, including inflammation, bleeding, ulceration, and perforation of the esophagus, stomach, small intestine, or large intestine, which can be fatal. And not only that, these adverse events, quote, can occur anytime with or without warning symptoms. 4 out of 5 patients with these complications had no warning signs at all. As for the prevalence, they occur in, quote, 1% of patients treated for 3 to 6 months, and in about 2 to 4% of patients treated for 1 year. That's a bit too often to be called rare. In fact, that's officially classified as common, which is between 1 to 10%. And they warn that, quote, even short-term NSAID therapy is not without risk. Lindell describes her mother's experience thus. Her doctor gave her the oral version for chronic hip pain because he didn't want to give her opioids. She took it exactly as prescribed, and about 1 year later, meloxicam almost killed her. She had a very sudden and very serious perforated ulcer. My mom had no warning symptoms, just as the fine print for Zyferm warns can happen. She collapsed at work and had to be rushed to the hospital via ambulance. As is so often the case, hospital staff ignored her pain complaints for 9 hours before she finally got a CT scan. She then had to be immediately rushed to emergency surgery. Quote, my mom spent the next week in critical care, unable to eat or drink anything at all for a full week while her stomach healed. It was a harrowing experience made worse by the fact that all of this happened during the height of the COVID lockdown, meaning none of us were able to visit her at all while she was in the hospital. And the thing is, she is one of the lucky ones, because she survived. But the experience of people like her and the people who died don't make the news, unlike the tales of opioid overdose, which again happened either because of the black market form of the drug or by polypharmacology. As a result, doctors and hospitals frequently refuse to provide full agonist opioids to patients who need them the most on the mistaken belief that these drugs are dangerous while NSAIDs are safe. Actually, the opposite is the case. And yet, people aren't warned about the dangers of NSAIDs while they're made to be absolutely paranoid about the much safer alternative of full agonist opioids. Let's do a thought experiment. What would happen if we made at least low-dose opioids like hydrocodone over the counter? Are you afraid it would make people addicted? It wouldn't. Addiction doesn't work that way. People don't become addicted through exposure. What it could do is identify addicts who could then be referred to treatment. Are you afraid people would overdose? Let's do some math. A typical dosage is 5-3-25, which is 5 milligrams of hydrocodone to 325 milligrams of acetaminophen, or paracetamol for those across the pond. For a 70-kilogram adult, the LD50 of hydrocodone is estimated at 49,000 milligrams. You'd have to take almost 10,000 pills to reach that. For acetaminophen, it's 10,000 milligrams, and you'd reach that after taking just 30 pills. So you'd die from acetaminophen long before you died of hydrocodone. So you won't overdose and you won't become addictive. What else would be the problem? That you're out of pain? Or maybe that you'd take it to get high? So the problem is people might feel good? What H.L. Mencken described as the haunting fear that someone, somewhere, may be happy. Seriously, what is the issue? What do you expect hydrocodone to do that alcohol isn't doing in spades? It makes people drunk, people die from it, people drive dangerously because of it, yet alcohol is perfectly legal. And now, a dangerous IV NSAID is being pushed over full agonist opioids. Sheer insanity. I'll close off the way I came in. Drug policy in the U.S. makes no sense whatsoever.